I'm slashing out this weedy area by hand to cut out things before it goes to seed. I want to share three very important reasons we're doing this. I'm Justin Hitt from Prosperity Homestead. I'm using a hand sickle to go through here and basically drop these weeds on the ground. So it's basically a chop and drop. And by dropping these on the ground, it's giving me an idea of where the rocks are, some piles of rocks, and also where somebody was burning trash a long time ago. So before this area can be useful for goats, I need to make sure I get up all the trash and that we clear the fence line. So there's beer bottles back here. Again, it's a derelict piece of land that I'm managing. Got some openings, but ultimately, by knocking down all this weed, we're gonna make a mat of chop and drop, and surely this weed will come back, but I can't put goats in here until I'm sure there's nothing in here, that there's no trash or weeds or anything. But once we put the goats in here on the property line, we'll start planting trees on and just inside the property line. We might leave a gap on the property line because we want to make sure it's easy to survey. But essentially, we're going to plant trees inside the property line to start getting our tree fodder system set up. We're going to try to leave enough space inside of the tree line to put up an electric fence. But basically, we need to be able to walk around the area where the goats are. So I'm cutting around the outside at a minimum. And then once I'm sure there's no trash, because we picked up the trash, then goats can go in. Do we have goats on the property? No, we don't have goats on the property yet. But we're very close to the road, so I can bring in water. And then we can put up an electric fence or a solar electric fence and get the goats in here to clean these tree lines out. So these tree lines contain more weeds, more briars, more of a lot of things. So what I want to try to do is 50 feet in, cut a trail parallel with the road so that I can put temporary electric fence in. And so what I'll try to cut is trails like this, so I can put a fence right down the middle. And then go in there and get all the trash out. You can see beer bottles and other trash, but basically, if I can cut down this way, parallel with our road, then I can have a charger on the road where it's in the sun, and then have the goats clear this area of woods up. And then what I would do next is I would cut another trail out there somewhere. Now looking in the woods there's not a lot of fodder. I do see a tire. So basically we don't want the goats in there where there's no food and there's just a bunch of trash. But basically what we're using the goats for is to get rid of all this, to get rid of all this briar. Now there may be a situation where once the goats clear it out, I may want to bring pigs in behind, but you definitely can't have any of this trash if there are pigs in here, because the pigs we're having will root up the soil and kind of level everything out, kind of smooth it all out. And again, we want our animal welfare very high, because the concept that I'm looking at here is that I'm going to treat the animals better than I could treat myself, because eventually the animals will be me. You know, we're consuming these animals. They need to have the best life possible so that we're providing the highest quality food to ourselves and those folks that are involved in the co-op. So all of this here is good nutritional value, and goats will knock it down or eat it, but I'm going to have to manually knock it down to make sure it's safe for the goats. So manually knocking it down like this, if we had goats on site, I could take this and throw it in a goat pen or just leave it here to rot. But once this is clear and cut back, and it'll grow back, then I can let goats come into it, and then I can start pulling out some of the dead trees, cutting lower branches. We're doing a little bit of agroforestry here. I can start cutting lower branches. Now there's a risk I clear this all out and see how it goes, accesses the road, that somebody might decide to four-wheel on it. So we have to make that clear. We're also going to designate trails for four-wheeling access, because when we're picking up and adding fences, we might be using a side-by-side or a quad. But again, it's a balancing act. I can actually see a trail through there. That's a trail from deer. It's a balancing act of chopping and dropping and losing some of the caloric value. But since there's no animals here, I can at least get the cleanup taken care of. And so It's a little bit of manual work. Would this be better with a string trimmer? Maybe. But again, I want to use, you know, it's like 8 o'clock in the morning. I want it to be quiet. I want it to, you know, enjoy the sounds of nature. And this scythe, or Japanese kama, notice the long handle on it, works just fine to get this work done. And so the tip is clear it around the perimeter so that you could put an electric fence in and impound the goats. And what I mean by impound, that means I'll leave them in here longer than they should be in here so that they'll eat everything down to the ground. And then I can come back and seed it if we're going to put cover crops in it. I can come back and, you know, let select stuff grow back. There are some grasses in here. Some of them are native grasses. I can come back here and grade it a little bit to level it out some, because this during the day has sunlight, so it could be a good garden area. But we really want to get the briars out. There's some dead trees over there that need to come out. I also need to inspect the area to make sure there's no rhododendron or anything that would be toxic to goats or pigs. And then also, when we were dropping this matter, as you can see where I've dropped it before, we're building biomass on the surface. So hopefully that'll favor the grasses to come through here and help build up our soil value here. So it's a cycle of things. If we wanted to draw it out on paper, we could show you the energy cycle. I'm putting out some calories now to get calories later. I'm dropping some vegetative calories that are going to protect the soil. I'm, you know, planting fence lines while I'm cleaning up areas. And then if I need posts for a dead hedge or something like that, I would come get those posts out of this line here that is parallel with the road. And so I'm trimming, I'm cutting, I'm using the local resources to the best of their abilities while maintaining quality and maintaining biological benefit. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. If you're starting a small farm, homestead, or an estate, and you want ideas on how to better manage the land, how to get more from the land, just like and subscribe. Contact us at www.prosperityhomestead.org, and we'll get you up and running.